With StarPark.biz updating and the Summer of Dinosaurs making its big debut, I believe we are on the verge of some huge new lore developments, and I think it's safe to say that the next season of lore will be starting soon, if you don't consider it started already. And not to mention the last time that the StarPark website got updated with real, actual props, we got the investor video. And considering we now have actual props once again, I think something worthwhile could be in store for us soon. Now, a few things before we get into it. First of all, if you haven't seen my first theory, I highly suggest you go watch that first, otherwise this won't make a lot of sense. Second, if you do like the video, consider hitting the buttons, blah blah blah, you know how YouTube works. Now, on to the good stuff. For those of you who need a brief reminder, StarPark was created in the late 50s and ran all the way into the early 70s. They put people into comas through the use of radiation and viruses, and we control their dreams in the game. A union, who called themselves Spewed, decided to risk their lives to end StarPark, and it ultimately ended with a fire raging through the property. There's a lot more, but this is just a refresher. StarPark was consumed in a pit of fire, that much we know. But what if that wasn't the end? Because from the looks of it, StarPark seems to have survived, and while their appearance has changed, it would seem that their sinister intentions remain the same. It's funny, because Supercell likes to test our ability to find secrets. Back in December of 2019, we were able to predict the next update because someone found a pirate logo on a singular piece of confetti, and now they're testing our abilities once again with a kind of mini-mystery, a whodunit type series to help promote the esports championship. But I don't think that this is just a fun little bonus thing. I believe that it's a clue, maybe not directly, but definitely indirectly, because one of our largest hints was this reappearing symbol, most notably on a book titled How to Be Evil. Now, this ended up being a symbol for villains, most notably Virus 8-Bit. Of course, I originally thought that this symbol was linked to Super City because it can be found on Surge and Super Ranger Brock, which I still don't understand why these characters have this symbol because Surge is a hero and Brock's skin is based on the Power Rangers, which are good. But whatever, that's besides the point. The takeaway from this is that symbols are appearing to be a lot more important than what I originally thought. Paul has obviously created these symbols with purpose, with different insignias meaning different things. To be honest, I could probably do an entire video about symbols, but in this video we'll be looking at one very specific symbol. On September 10th, 2020, we received the Welcome to the Gift Shop animation, which actually gave us some strong hints on what StarPark was doing, along with some cryptic double meanings.
Is that who I am?
But amidst the chaos and the antics of the situation, we can see this symbol. It's easy to miss among the rest of the attractions and rides, but it's quickly recognizable for anyone who's played the game for thousands of hours, like me. It's Tara's all-seeing eye, and that makes sense, duh. This is Tara's Bazaar, of course it's going to be there. So why do I think this is important? Well, what if I said that this wasn't just Tara's headpiece? Because this symbol also happens to be the logo for the Summer of Dinosaurs, and we can see it on Dino Leon's pendant as well, and more importantly, Buzz's sunglasses. Sure, it's a little bit more rounded, but it's the same thing, the circle with 3 points and a hole in the middle. Look at the villain symbol from the esports mystery. It's not an exact replica, it has this little diamond at the bottom, unlike Virus 8-Bits, which is completely flat, but it was still confirmed that these two are the same things. A little bit of variation doesn't rule it out. Now, Ranter told us to solve mysteries by looking at patterns and analyzing the similarities. And what's the pattern between a psychic and a dinosaur? Well, to put it simply, the past. As we see in Part 4, Tara can see into the past, as well as the future due to this community post, and Buzz and Dino Leon are from the distant past. But how does that tie into a dinosaur-themed water park? Well, as I've stated previously, StarPark burned down in a fire. We can clearly see it at the end of the investor video, but the key here isn't to look at the end. It's to look at the beginning, because if we go back, we can see a very specific environment right next to the spherical building. That's right, Tara's Bazaar, which is the exact place where the fire is. Amber deliberately started a fire there, but why of all places would you make sure to start it there versus, the Mind Control Center? Well, remember the white hole / black hole theory? Guess which brawler just so happens to be able to create black holes? Tara. She can control the past, present, and future. If Amber could stop Supergiant Star Corporation from moving through time, then she could stop them from taking over the rest of the universe. But of course, that didn't stop them. Look at this image on StarPark.biz. If we look closer at the spoon, we can see that there's also an image of StarPark aside from the soy sauce. But the catch here is that it was never used. But if it was never used, why would it have soy sauce? because it was deliberately placed there. I believe that this is a map of where the fire burned, and as you can see, it burned down a lot, including Tar's Bazaar. But it didn't burn down everything. In fact, besides the technology that allows them to time travel, they had everything they needed to continue their plans. The mind control center was still up and running, the gem mines weren't burned, which meant that they had a consistent supply of the germs, which allowed them to feed the guests. They even had Mortis Mortuary in Super City. The fire hurt them, but they survived. It took them 8 months, but they did it. They rebuilt. They used up the free real estate to create something new. A water park. They killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Sorry. They solved 2 problems at once by putting out the fire with water and then creating a dinosaur-themed attraction, just like we saw in the investor video. And that explains Frank's tweet, which happens to have a new, redesigned logo. The park may have changed, but the people behind it, and more importantly their motives, are still the same. But nearly every environment in Brawl Stars is based off a pre-existing ride. I may not be looking hard enough, but as far as I can find, there doesn't seem to be any dinosaur water park built by Disney. I think that this anomaly was done on purpose, and the reason for it is far more relevant and much more personal. If you recall, I stated that I had a lot of trouble figuring out what the exact motive of Star Park was. And while yes, I stated that I thought the Soviet Union was behind it, I'm not sure how accurate that is now. Don't get me wrong, they are still in this, but, well, let me put it this way. Star Park isn't part of the Soviet Union so much as the Soviet Union is part of Star Park. Like I said in WK Barrel Explained, I believe that the timeline in which the investor video was filmed has already been taken over by Supergiant Star Corporation. That would explain why there are so many different languages broadcasted on Star Park Radio. They sell products in every country and on every continent, because they control everything. But why? Yes, it's world domination, because they straight up told us. But that always just felt bland to me. That's such a generic villain motivation, and Supercell is more creative than that. But while yes, their goal is to take over the world, and then presumably the universe, there's something more, another layer that needs to be peeled back. There's a reason why they want to take over the world. And let me tell you, it's amazing. But to find out why, we need to take a look at Buzz, the chromatic brawler for the Velocirapids water park. Now, we don't know what type of dinosaur he is, but we do know that he is a dinosaur, since Thomas Gordy, the voice actor of Buzz, told us that the description of the character was a lifeguard in a dinosaur suit. But why a dinosaur suit? That's extremely suspicious. I mean, we already have anthropomorphic dogs, sentient balls of slime, a living cactus. Why is it so impossible to have a dinosaur brawler? Well, what if I told you Buzz has been hiding something from us ever since he was first released? And I'm not talking about his suit. He's been wearing a second mask this whole time, and things become a lot clearer when we take off his sunglasses. Does this look familiar to you? Look at the eyes, look at the cheeks, and tell me, does this not look like Mr. P to you? May I remind you that they both just happen to be the only confirmed brawlers in the game that are mascots? Excluding Griff, because he technically isn't in the game at the time that I'm writing this, and Supercell has been dropping subtle hints about what's behind those shades. Look at his default pin. Why does he have his most recognizable feature removed? I mean, Belle never has her glasses removed, so why Buzz? Or if you turn Born Bad Buzz around at just the right moment, you can see a glimpse of his true self. Now, I should clarify that I'm not saying that Mr. P and Buzz are the same person, and the same goes for Gene. Mr. P is supposed to be based off a penguin plush, which is why he makes squeaking sounds. Gene just makes high-pitched gibberish. Plus, I already talked about skins and how one person in Star Park does not equal one brawler. I mean, there are hundreds of thousands of matches going on at any given second. How could there be thousands of one person at the same time? But if he isn't Mr. P, then why do they look so similar? Well, let's take a trip down memory lane, but not our memories, because this happened a long time ago. At the beginning of the Paleogene era, an extinction event caused almost all of the dinosaurs to go extinct. But do you know which ones survived? The ones that were small, the ones that could feed off small animals while all the larger carnivores were dying off from starvation. Dinosaurs like the Tyrannosaurus Rex couldn't get enough sustenance from their prey, and so they died out. But one specific branch prospered during and after this event. The avian dinosaurs, the same branch that would eventually spiral off and create the hundreds of different species of birds, which includes eagles, crows, and most importantly, penguins. And once you realize that, everything starts to fit into place. I already said that birds were behind everything, and I also said that this was some sort of metaphor. But what if it's much more literal than that? The caption on the vocab on the Star Park website says, "looks angry," and that's true. All the birds in the game look angry. Why are they angry? Because they once ruled the world as gigantic carnivorous titans, and now they're just angry pigeons that eat out of the trash. Supercell, Supergiant Star Corporation, and Star Park were all created by birds who are angry about being nerfed from dinosaurs, and who are incredibly jealous of the humans who took over the world. I mean, to be fair, I'd be angry too if I was forced into isolation on a frozen continent for millions of years, and hunted down by chubby carnivorous walruses without the cool tusks, and then to add insult to injury, had to waddle around on those short little legs with their knees shoved up their bodies, all because they have to keep warm or else they'll die. However, there's a problem with this. If Star really is controlled by birds, whether they're anthropomorphic or not, then how does this image exist? This image portrays three men, who have been presumed to be Frank, Ryan, and Danny, sitting around a table in a perfect parallel to stepbirds. Take a look at their faces. The image quality is low, but their expressions perfectly match. This is what made me think it was a metaphor. How could birds be both humans and birds at the same time? Well, I think it has something to do with Skin of Mike. Now, this is one of the many products produced by Supergiant Star Corporation, and in bare essentials, it's basically a skincare product that makes you shapeshift. Now, I've stated before how this refers to how people trapped in their radioactive food comas shift into the brawlers that we pick, but once again, a reminder that Supergiant Star Corporation makes these weapons in real life. Take a look at this part of the investor video where we can see two cashiers in the gift shop. Now, one thing that's extremely interesting to me is how they both just happen to look like Colette. I don't think that this is a coincidence or that they're somehow twins. I think that they've physically been transformed to look like this brawler. It's possible that the molecular reconstruction ad wasn't referencing a teleporter, but rather a physical way to shapeshift into someone or something else. And just look at the poster on the mirror. They're selling skins just like Skin of Mike. Of all places to put it, where else better than right next to these two? I think that the penguins or the birds created this technology to reconstruct their atoms to appear human. Taking a glance at the very disturbing Uncanny Valley dinosaurs within Velociraptors, we can clearly see that they have human teeth. I'll be honest, I'd rather not be able to clearly see them, but regardless, teeth have been a recurring theme throughout the mystery, such as the 8-bit minigame, the Dino Teeth on the Star Park website, etc. I think that it's a strong possibility that the community managers, well, excluding Paula, could be birds, and that would also make the CEO of Supercell a penguin, and Spike is an actual penguin, which actually makes sense. All the other mascots in the game are birds. It's insane, I know, and I swear, I sound more and more like Ranter each day, but the pieces fit unbelievably perfectly. It's creative, it's hilarious, it's evil, and I couldn't think of a better villain motivation in my dreams. But as I stated before, the fire didn't stop them from continuing their plans, but the website clearly states that Star Park is defunct. But if it wasn't the fire and it wasn't the boss bot in the mind control center, then what caused the park to shut down? I'm actually curious how long Supercell plans on keeping this mystery up. I mean, once you've already established that the park has been destroyed, there's only so much you can fit into a certain time frame. But let's begin with one of our most consistently reliable sources, Ranter himself. Now, while absolutely insane, he has been right time and time again. He was right about the gems, he was right about the germs, and evidently he was correct about the birds. So it would appear as though pretty much everything he says is important. But one thing that seems to have more emphasis placed on it is one particular excerpt. Let's listen to it, shall we?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you right now, there's disasters everywhere. Could they be toxic waste? Yeah, they could. But you know what? I could be a cow on the moon. I'm not. And that's not. What is it actually? Comets? Comets?
Comets. For months and months, I have tried to figure out what this means, but I was physically not able to. And to make things worse, he says it twice, which makes it just as important as the singularity, which referred to the black hole that allowed Star Park to time travel. But I think the reason I had such trouble solving this was because it wasn't a part of this puzzle. It was a part of the next step of the mystery. Let's rewind a bit, shall we? All the way back to chapter 1 with this symbol right here. Now, you may have thought that I was done with it, but I believe it has one more huge secret hidden within it. Now, we've already established how this symbol is linked to Buzz. It's part of the theme which correlates to the Velociraptors water park. But the interesting thing here is that this isn't the only marking on Buzz. He actually has two. The first one, which we've covered extensively, but there's also this symbol, which looks very similar to the first, but with an X through it. And you know, admittedly, this looks like a lot of things. Terra's all-seeing eye, a dinosaur footprint, but it also looks like something else. Something much more relevant. An asteroid. The same one that killed the dinosaurs. And of course it has a big ol' X through it. The birds hate asteroids because it caused the Great Extinction Event. But what's even more fitting is that this just happens to be a disaster, and a very big disaster at that. And what caused this disaster? Comets. And you may be saying, but comets and asteroids aren't the same thing, and that's what I thought at first too. But the kicker here is that the Wikipedia article states that the object that caused the Cretaceous extinction event was most likely a massive asteroid, or a comet. Oh, and what are comets, asteroids, and meteors? Shooting stars. Now tell me, does that sound familiar to you? And just one more thing on this subject. Kotsagat, I know I butchered that, recently posted a tweet about their video about the Cretaceous extinction event, to which Brawl Stars replied with this image and the caption stating, "Not today, asteroid." Oh, but ladies and gentlemen, I think there's more, because I feel like it's obvious that the birds as well as Buzz would hate asteroids. I already talked about their motives. The question is, what caused the asteroid? And I know that's a ridiculous question. What caused the asteroid? It's just a piece of space junk that was flying through the void and happened to collide with us. But what if it wasn't? What if it was intended? Just what if? Now, hang on a second. Space junk. Now, where have I heard that before?
We'll continue this episode of Space Junk after the break.
Now, for those of you who don't know, some of the first second gadgets ever released were foreshadowed with special ads pertaining to each one, and one was, and I quote, a phone-based Meteor delivery application called Meteor On Demand, which was revealed in-game as El Primo's asteroid belt, which causes an asteroid to land in the general vicinity of the nearest enemy, and it just so happens to be marked with a giant X. Now, while yes, this gadget is just in-game, we also know for a fact that these products exist in real life, just like how Rose's Grow Light gadget was being sold in the World Finals Championship. And all the way back in August of 2020, we received the 8-bit minigame. In the second level, titled Slugfest, the setting happens to be a very flooded area with a beach, which looks extremely similar to a certain new environment, which is also relevant in the lore. And yes, you could argue that this is Daryl's ship environment due to the Kraken tentacle. I find it awfully suspicious that Daryl's ship is nowhere to be found. As the level progresses, the world around us becomes more desolate and sandy until we're met with the ruins of the Mind Control Center. And it doesn't look like any fire caused this, it looks almost apocalyptic, like a world-ending disaster happened here. And all that's left other than the remains of civilization is a cow skull which can be found in the Wild West Showdown environment. Showdown, an environment which happens to be marked with a ginormous X. Showdown, which just so happens to take place inside a gigantic crater. And before you go commenting that Showdown is a square, not a circle, fun fact, meteor craters can be square, such as the Meteor Crater, yes, that's its actual name, in Arizona, which just so happens to be a rounded square, just like the walls of Showdown. Anyways, just felt I should say that. Spewed failed to take down Star Park the first time. I don't think they were going to take any chances on the second round. I think somehow, someway, Spewed transported Star Park all the way back in time to the days of the dinosaurs, where they gave Star Park a taste of their own medicine. They used their own weapons against them, calling down a gigantic shooting star to wipe them off the face of the earth, which effects wreaked havoc across the globe, and the shockwave created a desolate desert, the setting of Tarzar, Showdown, the Wild West, and the Gold Arm Gang environments. And it would appear that it even stretched all the way down to the Veloz Rapids water park. And that's what Brawl Stars is and always will be running. It's a time loop. A gigantic comet hits the Earth, wiping out all but avian dinosaurs, mammals, and a few other species. The world is taken over by humans, and the result is a few angry birds who are furious about being nerfed from their great ancestry. They create a corporation which fuels wars and end up taking over the world. In the end, they create Star Park and broadcast the dreams of its trapped employees into different dimensions, making millions of dollars a day to continue funding their plans to take over the entire world. But in doing so, they accidentally create Spewed, who end up calling a giant meteor to destroy the dinosaurs and prevent Star Park from achieving their goal of taking over the entire universe. And that happens over and over again. Forever. And that's why 8-bit has an infinity symbol on his headband. I mean, yes, it's supposed to be a spoof of Street Fighter, but Ryu doesn't have any mark on his headband. And guess what 8-bit says in his Japanese translated text? The day will come when those who lose will not lose. And he doesn't say it once, he says it twice. But there's something I don't get. If they had already taken over the world, why create Star Park? Something always stood out to me during the investor video. Corbin's dialogue is very specific, very intentional, very cryptic. And that's on purpose. I mean, he's in a position of power while also being a part of Spewed. He's trying to tell us all the terrible crimes against humanity being performed while also keeping Supergiant StarCorp from catching on. But in a world of chaos, warfare, and destruction, in a place where weapons are disguised as silly theme park attractions, how does he describe Star Park?
もちろんユートピアですよ
I mean, I feel like that's a little far from the truth, don't you think? I know a few instances that might contradict that statement. But in any case, I have to thank my co-theorist Oroxa for putting together some huge pieces. Now, while u/xweezy8 was the first person to realize that the investor video was based off Walt Disney's Wonderful World of Color, Oroxa started putting a ton more pieces together just hours after that. For example, if you look at the Disneyland Paris map, it has some extremely similar features, most notably how there are multiple worlds within the theme park: Frontierland, Adventureland, Fantasyland, and Main Street USA. All of these sections of the park have rides and traits which, if you look closely, may seem familiar, including a Starcade spelled with one R. And in addition to the rides, the Disneyland Paris ticket states you'll travel back and forth in time through continents and beyond, and if that doesn't sound like Star Park, then I don't know what does. Let's travel back to May 23rd, 2021, where Frank posted the following tweet: "Good memories from my #StarPark visit with Danny a few years ago." Now, aside from the very vague description of a few years, there is a lot to analyze from this post, most notably a brand new logo. But Oroxa went above and beyond. She linked these attractions with real-world Disneyland rides, and the resemblances are undeniable. This image looks like the source material of whoever drew it. There's the color, the structure, the chimneys, the trees, or Thunder Mountain, which has the exact same outline and even has the bones sticking out of the bottom, and Mortis Mortuary, which was obviously inspired by Phantom Manor. But probably the most important thing that Oroxa noticed was the real-world equivalent of this building. Because while yes, it is the mind control center, since we can see these waves coming from an antenna as well as a control panel, which can be found on the interior during the investor video, it's a lot more than just that. Remember, everything within Star Park is based off of something from Disney: the rides, the animatronics, the global entertainment universe. But I'm genuinely surprised no one matched up this building with the centerpiece from the lesser-known Epcot. And that building is called Spaceship Earth. Spaceship Earth was built back in 1982 as a part of a brand new Disneyland theme park. The ride takes you through a brief history of humankind, from cavemen all the way to what used to be modern times. And every single attraction in Star Park just so happens to be real. Just from the name, we can already begin to start linking things together, because we can see tons of early space travel technology within the lore, which were likely sent through the black holes created and controlled in Tara's Bazaar. From the sound of it, it's possible that the entire Earth was sent through time, although there's nothing else to support that currently, so take it with a grain of salt. But what really gets me is what Spaceship Earth was built for, because yes, it's an attraction, but it's just the centerpiece. What's more fascinating is the park that it was built in. Let's take a minute to talk about Walt Disney's Epcot. The year was 1957, and despite spending his life creating a world-famous animation studio, and then spending the other half focusing on bringing the worlds he created to life, Walt still had a dream to create something far larger than himself. A city, but not just any city, a community of artists and creative people, including many of the employees that worked at Disney. His idea was that this would bring people together so that they could reach new heights and make revolutionary techniques and outstanding artistic creations. However, many of the workers already had a multitude of disagreements with the way Walt handled things, and this was just another log on a burning fire. This helped contribute to a huge studio strike, not unlike a certain event that happened in Star Park. The city was eventually downgraded to an arts college, but this didn't stop Walt. In fact, it had the opposite effect. He was determined to create a city, something new, something innovative. He wanted to create a city of tomorrow. And so he began Epcot, or the Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow, a project so large it would consume the rest of his life, to the point where even on his deathbed, he was obsessed with his world coming to life. He wanted to create a perfect city, a utopia, a city of tomorrow. That's what Star Park is. Look at Super City, which is based off Tomorrowland. The key is in the name. And go back to the 8-bit minigame where Spaceship Earth has been destroyed. It's surrounded by the remnants of skyscrapers. The entire world is encased in conflict and war, orchestrated by Supergiant StarCorp, and Star Park is a shining oasis of relief, a safe place, but in reality, it's not. It's a trap, an illusion, all to enslave people with mind control and disease-laced food. It's a community of artists and creative persons from all walks of life, and of course, it's a place you'll never want to leave, because you can't. You can tell from Walt's legacy what he left behind. You know the timeless films, you know the happiest place on Earth, but I assume this is the first time you're hearing of Walt's great city. He didn't want to be remembered like this, but I guess history had other plans. And at the end of the day, you can't escape destiny. And that's the way it ends, more or less, which is funny because I don't think this has even really begun. But something tells me this isn't finished, although I don't really know what comes next. But hey, to be fair, it's not like the birds didn't survive an extinction event. Who knows what Supercell has in store for us? I mean, once again, we'll most likely be getting something similar to the investor video soon, considering that devs usually balance out the lack of content due to their annual month-long vacation. But only time will tell. Currently, I'm organizing a very large project with a bunch of really cool people. We should have it finished within the next 2 months, so I'm sorry if my upload schedule is a bit delayed. A little bit more delayed, I should say.